Okay, this is February 23rd. This is my under-insulated, to modern standards, attic. There's 2x6 joist up here with old fiberglass insulation, and then there's those like 6-inch fiberglass bats laying on top of probably 80% of the house. And this is what we're starting with in the attic. Okay, I'm gonna get out of the wind. This house was built in 1960. As you can probably tell by the windows. They're awning windows, which they haven't installed in a long time. And this brick is brick over frame construction. So there's brick on the outside, but I still have 2x4 framing on the inside, 2x4 wall cavities. And in 1960, by code, you did not have to insulate a house. Now, nowadays that has changed. There's code requirements that you have to insulate to certain standards. And this house is 1,690 square feet, and I'm out in the middle of nowhere, as you can see. And I live at the bottom of a hill, and in the wintertime it gets cold, and this is I never knew the wind blew until I moved out here. So we're going to see by the end of the day how much difference this makes. I haven't mentioned who's doing this yet. This is going to be the company that you hear advertised on TV all the time that does the foam insulation. So they're just starting to do my attic now. Okay, this is a shot of the thermometer in the bedroom. This is an unusually warm day for February. It's a little over 50 degrees out here in Ohio. This temperature, when we're in the 30s outside, is usually about 63.8, 64 degrees. So it's about a degree warmer in here today than it typically is. So this is they're just starting to put insulation in the attic. So we'll see what happens by the end of the day. Okay, here's what it looks like when they do a brick house. They put holes every few bricks, high and low, and that's what they put the foam in through. Okay, here's another shot. Those holes aren't very easy to see. They're nice. They're not very big holes. There's along there, and they go up high. There's holes up there, and I'll take you inside and show you what it looks like on the inside, because I had such tight bushes and stonework, and they couldn't get behind the bushes. So we're doing some from the inside as well. Okay, here we are inside the living room. I had to move a few things around, and this is what the holes look like on the inside of the wallboard. They're going to blow foam inside there, and they've got plugs that fit the holes that they make, and they'll mud over top of that, and it'll be ready for paint in short order. And needed a paint job anyway this spring, so I'm moving into another room here, and got holes in this bedroom wall, and there's another shot inside that wall. That's if you can see that little black sparkly spot, it's that's the foam board. It's there's no insulation in there at all. Okay, here's another opening in a different room. Same scene. There's nothing in that wall. In a way, I wish they did a couple holes in here so I could shine the light through the top and you could see through the bottom. But I knew going into this, I've been here for a long time, and I've had to take outlets out of the house before, change them, and I knew there was nothing in these walls. Okay, here's some of the brickwork where they've done. There's a little foam oozing out there, and you can see it inside the hole there. So they'll come back by this, and they've got mortar mixed up, and they'll mortar those holes shut, and we'll be good to go. Okay, here we are on the inside of the garage, and they've done this from the inside, kind of like the interior house will be done. So the foam's still setting up, and they'll plug these holes. It looks like this is going to be a whole series of videos that I'm going to string together. But that's what that looks like there. And we'll show you what it looks like when it's covered up and fixed. Okay, this is what the attic looks like now. They put this blown in insulation in it. It don't feel like fiberglass. It feels like it's cotton or something, but it's not. And all the way back and way back in the corners, they done a real fine job on that. And it's a whole lot more insulation up here than what there used to be. It's up at least a couple blocks on that chimney, and it looks real good. So it's I'm not sure how deep it is really, but it's a lot more than what it was. Okay, this is about 5 months later. This is after the mortar's all dried out good. There's some of the mortar joints. It's been redone. And I think it looks pretty good. And it matches pretty good if you stand back. This is the same wall that I showed you with all the holes in it earlier. You can tell where they were, but it's not, I don't think it's objectionable. I'm only about 10 feet away. Not even quite that far. So it turned out pretty good. I'll do another shot here of a different wall. And I'm trying to get a little light on the temperature here. This is not the same day as that day in February, but it's a nearly identical temperature day. It's 55 degrees outside, and I've got 68.3 degrees in the bedroom, and my furnace has been shut off for 5 hours, so it has held the heat really well. Typically, before I had insulation, if my heat was off or my power was off or something like that, the temperature in this house would plummet. So it's made a huge difference. The biggest difference I've noticed is the fact that it's so much quieter in the house because the furnace is not running all the time. And the road noise is quieter. I'm not hearing as much noise from the traffic and things like that driving by. So it's made a big difference there. And the furnace seems like it's running half as much, but that's just a seat of the pants observation at this point. I don't know yet until the end of this season. This is November. Following, we had the insulation put in February at the end of last winter, and this is November. So I'll come back with a future video and get some things ironed out in dollars and cents, because I've got some documentation from previous years of what my heating costs were. So every year is not exactly the same, but I ought to have a decent idea of what the differences are. So this is, I think this is going to finish this video. See you later. Hello, back again. This is next day after I took that last temperature reading. The temperature outside is about the same, mid-50s. But today it's not cloudy and raining, and there's some sun coming in the window. So it's 71.4 degrees in the bedroom, and that is with just passive heat. No additional heat adding devices. So it's looking like this room was always the coldest room in the house, nearly. So it's running 3 to 5 degrees warmer than what it used to. Actually, I've had to turn my heat down some when I have been running the heat, because I like a cool room to sleep in, and it'd just get a little too warm in here. So I got a couple other video shots I'm going to add in, and then I'll finish this thing up. It's taken me a year, or nearly a year, 10 months or so. So I'll be back here in just a minute. Okay, here's a little bit of the finished drywall, and I still haven't done my finishing yet. Here's where they plugged and muttered over it, and it's a little bit concave because joint compound shrinks a bit, so it needs to be gone over again, and then go over it with some thin set plaster and texture it, and then give it a paint job. And here's around the corner. So it's all right, I guess. I didn't really have much other way to do those two walls, because this is the bushes that I had to deal with in front of the house. These heavy hedges, and the equipment that they use is it kind of reminds you of an oxyacetylene set. There's two hoses to a nozzle, and it mixes the two chemicals through the nozzle to make the foam. And he just couldn't get back in there, because there's literally no room. Get back in there and drag that hose around to do all those joints. So we had to do two walls from inside. So if you didn't have this problem, you wouldn't have that at all. And here's some more of the mortar joints that are filled. And that looks alright, especially the further you get away from it, it's almost unnoticeable. And over time, that'll blend in. And I didn't explain very well exactly how they did it. Here's a shot. If you can see, those mortar joints are all lined up. Those holes that they made. And in between each one of the 16-inch on-center studs, you've got a wall cavity. So they put a hole down low and in the middle and up high. And then they start at the bottom, and the guy puts a little rod, like a little indicator, in the middle hole, and he starts putting foam in from the bottom. As it comes up and expands, it pushes the air out, and then when he sees that rod move and pushes air out there, and you'll see just a tiny bit of foam maybe squirt out, then he takes that rod out and moves it to the top hole, and then goes from the middle up, and then shoots a little bit in the top, so it completely fills the wall cavity. And then they mortar over it, and it turns out good. It's made a huge difference. And here's some more of these joints in the garage. Instead of going through the interior wall, I just do the exterior inside the garage wall, and that's all right. This is just going to get a little bit of there's no texturing here, no finish work. Just skim over it a little bit again and put a little bit of paint on it. And this is that's a USA insulation. If you're in Ohio, Kentucky, southern Michigan probably, these are the guys. And it turned out real well. I'm real happy with it.